If Japan's mobile phone giant NTT Docomo has its way, handsets will be the thing of the past. Welcome instead, the finger set. Calling home may soon be just a click of the fingers away. Multimedia Laboratories has come up with a way of transmitting sound from phones, in this case miniaturized to watch size, into the human bones via tiny vibrations from a device on the back of a wristband. It uses the biological phenomenon called bone conduction, the reason why people can still hear their own voice clearly even with their ears plugged. The prototype phone, called at this stage Finger Whisper, also uses this phenomenon to transfer sound from the fingertip to the ear bone structure, meaning the conversation is so quiet to all except the receiver that no one else can eavesdrop on the conversation. Multimedia Labs believes there's a future for this kind of phone now that mobile phones have become too small to be truly convenient. This, they say, was the natural next step. Meanwhile, the space between the earpiece and the mouthpiece means there is no need to strain to either hear the conversation or speak into the phone. And while in some countries the earplug microphone is caught on, in Japan it's seen as a bit of an embarrassment to be walking around seemingly talking to yourself. That's where Finger Whisper comes in handy, so to speak. They're also researching how to make a call without uttering a word. Mime speech recognition, which detects muscle signals and recognizes in the movement of the mouth different words, may help not only mute people speak, but also make speech in a noisy environment much easier to hear. Tiny robots featured at this international robot exhibition held in downtown Tokyo. The exhibition showcased everything from flights of fancy robots to the super precision factory floor machinery which Japan is known for. One of the major attractions was the world's smallest flying robot built by Seiko Epson. Called the Micro-Flying Robot, this tiny machine levitates with its bi-rotary propellers powered by an ultra-thin, ultrasonic motor. The key point is its small and powerful engine. It can be sneaked into narrow areas where people cannot go and collect information while it levitates. Not all robots were so delicate. A robot-inspired physical aid was also an eye-catcher. The muscular android suits have been created by students at the Tokyo University of Science, and inventors hope it will help people with weakened or paralyzed legs and arms. A similar robot-assisted suit was HAL 3, which is programmed to walk on demand, controlled with muscle nerve signals. By collecting the electric signal which occurs on the surface of the skin when people move their muscles, HAL 3 can assist in shrinking muscle and could enable people to move their legs with little power. While the suit is still quite bulky, the engine, power supply and all other parts are located in a backpack at the back. While most of the exhibition centered on industrial robots, which are perceived as the backbone of Japan's industrial success, there were many new colourful additions to the industry. It sits one person and has only 3 wheels, and it's designed to speed across Australia without a drop of fuel. It is the Nuna 2, a sun-powered car developed by Dutch students to compete against the giant car makers in the World Solar Challenge in Australia. Some 40 teams from all over the world compete in the 3,010-kilometre race from the northern city of Darwin to Adelaide in the south. Just like the previous model, the Nuna 2 is equipped with solar cells developed by Europe's space agency. The cells on Nuna 2, triple junction gallium arsenide cells, are among the most advanced in the world. The team also worked hard to improve the aerodynamics and the weight of the car. Driving at an average speed of 91 kilometres per hour, the last race was finished in just under 4 days. This team is aiming to boost the speed to 100 kilometres per hour. The top speed of the car would probably be around 160 kilometres per hour, but that speed will not be done during the race because it is not an efficient way to use the available energy that is received from the sun. To make sure enough power is stored for cloudy periods, the Nuna 2 sends data on the electrical current from the solar panels to a support vehicle. The team from the second vehicle then calculate the optimum speed in relation to the weather forecast. She's called Daughter of the Sun, and now her secret may be revealed. Using a new portable X-ray machine, researchers assume that an ancient mummy could be Nefertiti, the legendary Queen of Egypt. A new lightweight machine now allows British archaeologists to carry the machine into the ancient burial chamber where crumbling bones of an unknown skeleton were found. With the machine, scientists were able to analyse the skeleton on the spot. They positioned it under the bones and then viewed digital images within 3 seconds on a screen inside the tomb. 3 mummies were originally discovered in the tomb in 1898, but it was then sealed and forgotten. Now British archaeologist Dr. Joanne Fletcher from York University considered the tomb in her search for Nefertiti, as she was able to identify a Nubian-style wig found alongside the 3 skeletons. The instant X-ray revealed the mummy's head, a double-pierced earlobe, the impression of a brow band worn by royalty, an arm bent upwards in pharaonic style, with its fingers still clutching a long, vanished royal scepter. The radiographers were able to construct a 3D image of the skeleton along with an animated fly-through inside the mummy's body. The scientists were allowed for the first time to see the hidden rare gold bead embedded in her broken chest cavity, cast in a shape associated with royalty and Nefertiti herself. A team of forensic scientists, more used to rebuilding the faces of murder victims, have reconstructed the face of the mummy. The result was a striking resemblance to recorded images of Nefertiti. Dr. Fletcher has now been controversially banned from Egypt by the country's Supreme Council of Antiquities for making her claim of discovering Nefertiti. The council alleged she made the claim without their consultation. Furthermore, they dispute the evidence that the mummy is that of the legendary queen. Legendary Nefertiti is famed for her outstanding beauty. The wife of Akhenaten remains one of the most well-known of the queens of Egypt. Little is known about the origins of Nefertiti, but it seems unlikely that she was of royal blood. Her father was possibly a high official of Amenhotep III and Akhenaten, who went on to become pharaoh after Tutankhamun. The famous statue of Nefertiti is one of the most recognizable icons from the Amarna period of art in the 18th dynasty. It has escaped the excesses of the Amarna artistic style and survived the wholesale destruction of Akhenaten's monuments after his death. The statue is shown in the Egyptian Museum in Berlin, Germany. For years, many have dreamt about how to bring water to the arid desert of the Negev in southern Israel. And now a group of Israeli scientists say they may have the secret of how to make the desert bloom. A group of Israeli scientists of Russian origin have been working on their project in a laboratory in Jerusalem's Hebrew University, where they have created a rain-making machine. They hope the machine will one day be developed into a contraption that can be flown through clouds and sow them to cause rainfall over deserts or other areas that need water. In a plastic tube, the scientists have created an artificial cloud made up of tiny water particles so light that they float in the air. At the base of the contraption, a special electrical appliance is used to give the water particles in the artificially created cloud a small electrical charge. Some get a positive charge and some a negative charge. Just like magnets that attract each other, the droplets then coalesce. As they get bigger, they get heavier and fall to the ground as rain. The idea is that neutral droplets and charged droplets attract each other, so they become larger and larger, and they fall down. If the initial experimental apparatus can be developed, the scientists hope that it would provide a far more efficient alternative to existing techniques which involve the sowing of clouds with crystals that start the process of cloud condensation. The appliance could also have very important applications on the ground. Every year, tens of thousands of flights are delayed by fog at airports. A reliable machine like this could help disperse it rapidly, keeping airports clear. Of course, it will take many years of work and millions of dollars on research before the arid sands of southern Israel are turned into a tropical paradise. But that does not stop the Hebrew University researchers from working to achieve their dreams. Says laboratory chief Yuri Feldman, "What we have invented is the way to control the climate." The cars may look somewhat toy-like, but you still need a license to drive these battery-powered vehicles. A 2010 sports car and a vintage-style model oddly named Modern Times on the road. The cars are part of the company's so far successful strategy to develop toys for adults, with other products including karaoke systems for the home, robots that can open beer cans, and remote-controlled cars targeted at young men. The 2010 model has a maximum speed of 60 kilometers per hour. Takara's president, Kieta Sato, says it is targeting not just young men and women, but also the elderly. At an unveiling ceremony, he said he decided to enter the motor business because the fans of the company's toy car, Chotto Q, seemed to be a potential market. With our know-how for having fun, we believed there was a huge amount of chances for us to be in other industries, especially in the motor business. And that's why we decided to enter the motor field. The Q-Car's battery can be charged from an ordinary electric socket and has an 80-kilometer range. Although electric vehicles are eco-friendly, the hassle of recharging and relative lack of power have largely made them a flop for conventional automakers. The CeBIT Trade Fair is a showcase for all sorts of futuristic technologies, ranging from Sony's new Aibo electronic dog all the way to fingerprint and facial recognition devices which may be a part of our future in these security-conscious times. From the newest wearable computer to the latest personal digital assistants with integrated keyboards. The CeBIT is always a showcase of gadgets which the manufacturers hope will change our lives in the future. CeBIT is the world's largest computer technology trade fair. Sony's Aibo dog, an electronic version of man's best friend, seemed to attract many visitors who were fascinated that the plastic canine reacts just like Fido at home. In the wake of the attacks on New York and Washington, many software manufacturers are shifting resources into developing programs which could be used for increased surveillance and security for air travelers. Francis Zelazny of Visionix Corporation explained that a facial recognition system developed by her company would offer comprehensive security checks from check-in through to immigration. You can buy a plane ticket using a mobile device such as a camera, and when you check in, they can verify that you are the one who ordered a particular ticket. School children were invited to the starting of the Mud Clock at Bletchley Park in Buckinghamshire. It's here the first computer was invented and was home during the Second World War to the Enigma codebreakers. Now it's showcasing 500 old and new ideas turned into useful products in an exhibition called Wizards, Widgets and Weird Inventions. The exhibition is a chance for children to see how creative minds invent different products. There's the first toilet made by Jennings and a whole range of items to make life easier. Leading British inventor Trevor Bayliss wants to see young people taught invention at school. Two Dutch engineers who visited Bletchley Park were inspired by Enigma, the machine used to decode secret Nazi messages. They made their own microprocessor version, but feel the original surpassed anything of its time. It's hoped that some of those visiting Wizards, Widgets and Weird Inventions will be inspired by what they've seen and go on to invent things themselves. Now here is a change to the way we can keep children entertained. A small British company which makes removable and re-stickable wall murals for children is set to change the look of bedrooms all over the world as its international sales boom. The name of the game at Fun to See, a company based in Sussex in southern England, is to turn the often messy and time-consuming business of decorating into child's play. This removable and re-stickable wall art is designed by commissioned artists. It comes backed with a strong but kind adhesive, which doesn't damage walls or paintwork. It's the brainchild of friends and business partners Rachel Sellers and Louise Dutton. Fun to See giant room sticker sets are available in various themes, including undersea adventure, funky flowers, and outer space. There are plans to expand both the range itself and the volume of international trade. The contrast is clear between the controlled diet of Britain's Olympic 200-metre silver medalist Darren Campbell and the much more calorie-rich intake of Peter Radford, a bronze medalist at the 1960 Olympics. For Radford, now a professor of sports science, it's an illustration of the central role of science in sport today. It impacts not only on every training session, on developing the endurance and the strength and the power, it impacts on how athletes are selected in the first place. You look for athletes of a particular body size and configuration. Athletes compete in different environments, on different sorts of tracks, with different sorts of shoes. Their races are started in a different way and timed in different ways. Nothing about sport hasn't been touched by science over the past generation. Radford says that in his day, the emphasis was on skill as well as power. He feels sprinters are clearly less skillful than they were a generation ago, but they are a lot more powerful. Whether this is the right mix or not, time will tell. And you can even bring your friends along to this exhibition for a game of virtual volleyball. Named after the stone tablet that unlocked the secrets of Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Rosetta ESA mission aims to unlock the secrets of how the Earth was formed, with British scientists and technicians playing a leading role. Comets are believed to be primordial leftovers of material that eventually turned into the solar system. If successful, the mission could reveal how the planets and even life itself evolved. Rosetta is bound for comet 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko, named after the Russian astronomers who discovered it. The comet is only 2 kilometers across. The probe must be precisely navigated over hundreds of millions of miles of space over the 10 years it would take to reach this minute target. When the probe arrives in 2014, mission scientists admit they've no idea exactly what it will find. Rosetta is the first ever space mission to attempt a landing on a comet. A remote laboratory heading into the unknown in an attempt to answer some of the most fundamental questions facing humankind. This is Samburu National Reserve, an animal park in Kenya where the law of the jungle reigns supreme. Recently though, jungle law was overturned by a lone lioness which adopted a baby oryx. The lioness further surprised conservationists by adopting a second oryx after the first was eaten by a lion. Unfortunately, the oryx was taken away by game wardens who feared it would die of dehydration and hunger. The oryx had not been able to suckle from its mother and had not eaten anything since it was born. The lioness has since been christened Kamuniak, or Blessed One, by the Samburu people. The lioness, which stunned the world by adopting the oryx, is now said to be trailing a herd of oryx, maybe in the hope that will be allowed to keep yet another child. The Kenya Wildlife Service said they could not let it just die of hunger. It would be unprofessional, unethical, and that they are saving the oryx from death. As the oryx recuperates, conservationists, researchers, and nature experts are trying to explore Kamuniak's peculiar behavior. Lions normally hunt oryx for food. At present, breast cancer detection can be a painful procedure and waiting for results can take weeks and weeks. But these researchers are developing a highly sensitive ultraviolet light to examine tissue. The information gathered reveals a spectrum of colour that separates healthy and cancerous tissue, and the results show whether the light has hit healthy or abnormal cells long before any damage becomes visible to the eye. Before now, no one had really devised a system delicate enough to detect the difference without bombarding the patient with high-powered levels of laser light. Researchers hope that technology will eventually prove cheaper and safer than mammography, and the results of the scan will be available straight away. Their ultimate aim is to see the present application of their work be for the benefit of all society. The Arctic region covers 1/6 of the surface globe, but despite appearances, it is not a frozen wasteland. A conference focusing on the Arctic heard about progress in increasing cooperation between Arctic countries in commercial ventures and also in scientific exploration. And climate change is affecting the Arctic more than anywhere else. Temperatures here are rising at twice the global average, causing the sea ice to thin by 5% in the last 20 years. Some projections say the Arctic Ocean could be free of ice as early as the summer of 2050. Such profound changes not only threaten Arctic wildlife, but could change global ocean currents and sea levels around the world. Some say for small island states in the Pacific, they'll be losing territory as sea levels rise. In the Arctic, what you'll see is tremendous threats to species that depend on sea ice, such as polar bears and ring seals. Many back strong laws to protect the Arctic from pollution and global warming. Others want the 8 countries of the Arctic Council to act through cooperation and not coercion. Whether through legal treaty or agreement, the states bordering the Arctic are determined to do more now to protect this unique terrain. The Arctic is of crucial importance for the whole planet. What would happen to animals if the North Pole became hot and humid? Apart from the ice melting, polar bears would also have a problem, as seen here when they spent some time in Singapore. The enormous bears have started turning green because of algae growing in their translucent hair shafts. 26-year-old Shiba and her 13-year-old son Anuka, the only 2 polar bears at the Singapore Zoo, started showing symptoms of the pigmentation. Zoo officials said Shiba had received treatment for the fungus growth. A few weeks before, her coat was sprayed clean with a hydrogen peroxide solution. Now she is a bleached white compared to the blemished and green Anuka, who will receive similar treatment soon. Visitors at the zoo were pleasantly surprised and also curious about the state of the bears. The bears seem hardly affected by their new colour as they continue to stroll around in their enclosure, occasionally taking a dip in the water. The zoo said the enclosure for the sea ice-loving creatures was specially built to suit them, consisting of air conditioning ducts and a pool area kept at a temperature of 14 degrees Celsius. Francis Lim of the Singapore Zoological Gardens said the bears were infected by algae on a log that they were playing with. Polar bears look white because they reflect light on their translucent hair shafts. Ecologists warn that with global warming, the polar bear could become extinct within 100 years. Florida is a common wintertime haven in the United States. But for some 3,000 West Indian manatees, an animal that looks something like an overgrown seal and whose closest land relative is an elephant, it is not always warm enough, and they succumb to frostbite. While sunbathers may find refuge in Florida in the wintertime, once the water drops below 68 degrees, manatees are at risk of frostbite, which causes their skin to fall off, eventually leading to death. Unlike dolphins or seals, manatees do not have many layers of fat and carry weight more akin to humans. And it's not just the weather that can pose a threat to manatees. They are often struck by boats, are crushed in canal locks, swallow fishhooks, are caught in crab trap lines, or come down with a virus called red tide. Manatees have been declared an endangered species since 1973. About 8% of the manatee population is lost each year. Within the United States, West Indian manatees are concentrated in Florida in the winter, but they can be found in summer months as far west as Texas and as far north as Virginia. On average, they are about 3 meters long and weigh between 362 and 544 kilograms. The state of Florida has 3 official critical care units to treat injured manatees, including a facility at the Lowry Park Zoo in Tampa, Florida. Last year, the Lowry Park facility treated some 17 injured manatees. The idea is to treat them and release them. To date, the hospital has cared for more than 125 manatees. Manatees with frostbite need to be fed a combination of vitamins and antibiotics through their nose at least 1 time a day. Their skin is cleaned and treated with a mixture of iodine. Approximately 85 to 90% of those surviving the first 48 hours have recovered and been successfully released back into the wild. At the Lowry Park Zoo, it costs $300 a day just to feed the manatees, and they eat up more than half of the zoo's $10 million budget. Initially, manatees are kept in small treatment pools, and later are moved to a larger pool with a glass viewing centre as a final testing ground before they're ready for release. Manatees can live up to 60 years old. On average, one calf is born every 2 to 5 years. The gestation period is about a year, and mothers nurse their young for 1 to 2 years. Malaysian ports and unscrupulous shipping agents are involved in smuggling illegally felled timber, fueling a trade that is wrecking fragile Indonesian forests, according to environmental campaign groups. In a report released after a 2-year investigation, the US-based Environmental Investigation Agency secretly filmed Malaysian businessmen boasting about a scheme in which they imported illegally felled Ramin timber from Indonesia, relabeled it as originating in Malaysia before exporting it mainly to China, where it is made into finished products like snooker and pool cues, dowel rods, picture frames and mop handles. Ramin is a threatened tree species found in primary rainforest across Southeast Asia, which is the dwindling habitat of rare orangutans, Sumatran rhinos and sun bears. Indonesia banned the felling and export of Ramin in August 2001 in a bid to halt the decimation of its rainforests. But lax controls and official corruption have meant much of the trade has continued unchecked. Malaysia has opted out of an international moratorium on the Ramin trade and is still allowed to sell the expensive wood overseas as long as it is of Malaysian origin. Processed Ramin can fetch up to $1,000 per cubic metre, incentive enough for Malaysian dealers to falsify details about the origin of their Ramin to allow them to sell it abroad. During its investigation, EIA activists posed as timber merchants and secretly videotaped visits to Malaysian timber dealers and port officials. The group also secretly videotaped conversations with a dealer who explained how the wood got from the forests of Indonesia to homes around the world, and with a port official who boasted about the quantity of Ramin the port handled. According to investigations, 4,500 cubic metres was shipping each month. Indonesia has protected zones and national parks dotted across its vast archipelago, but struggles to protect them in the face of the lucrative illegal trade in timber. Indonesia has urged a worldwide boycott of wood products from Malaysia to deter further buying of illegal logs. The extent of the problems that Indonesia faces in protecting its forests was vividly illustrated by a recent trip by environmental group Greenpeace's famous boat, the Rainbow Warrior. In a campaign to stop forest crime, Greenpeace took journalists into the Java Sea off the coast of Borneo, where they attempted to contact ships they suspected of transporting illegally felled timber. While refraining from high-profile publicity stunts that have characterized Greenpeace campaigns in the past, the group nonetheless says it gathered significant evidence of illegal logging in Indonesia's national parks. The future of Britain's rail network is being reviewed, and industry chiefs heard from Britain's Transport Secretary, who said it was crucial to set in place a long-term strategy. It said the problems that flowed from a flawed privatisation, public and private sectors, can work together provided they have the right organisation to do so. With investment of £73 million in Britain's railways and the network carrying over 1 billion passengers a year, it's important to introduce measures that would bring about a better service in Britain. The head of the organisation charged with overseeing the UK rail network stresses that any new structural measures brought in for a better railway must be matched by other changes, such as the culture, the attitude, belief, values and goals, because without cultural change, any structural change would be a waste of time. Transport Secretary Alistair Darling said it was time to streamline what he described as a fragmented and excessively complicated network. He said he wanted to prevent further suffering for passengers and added that there would be no new rail projects until there was proper control over costs. However, much technological improvement was needed, he said, because in the previous 40 years, the railways have suffered substantial underinvestment year after year. The Japanese who eat them and the Indonesians who catch them are combining forces to keep tuna on the table and income flowing for the fishermen. Fishing for tuna in the Indonesian seas has become a highly demanding job. Balinese fishermen are struggling to keep the supply of tuna rolling in. Indonesia and Japan set up Southeast Asia's largest tuna hatchery centre in the sleepy fishing village of Gondol on Bali Island's north coast. Japan is a major buyer of tuna from the world's largest archipelago. The project is part of a long-established government marine centre called the Gondol Research Institute for Mariculture that has been successful in farming grouper. They currently have around 60 yellowfin in their pools. More than half of them, weighing around 5 to 10 kilograms each, are in a 20-foot deep, 59 feet in diameter main pool where eggs are expected to be collected each August. The centre is concentrating on the hatching process before rushing into dreams of tuna farming. Environmentalists, however, blame overfishing for the increasing difficulty in finding the fish, and the phenomenon is alarming in Indonesia, which has opened its waters to other countries to fish. Critics also said that having a research centre, despite its numerous advantages, still does not tackle the problem of overfishing and simply serves as a lobby tool for the industry. The chief expert of the project showed his optimism and played down the need to limit the quota of the tuna catch in Indonesia, stressing the need to keep it at the same level or even more. The fast-swimming southern bluefin tuna found between Indonesia and Australia is already an endangered species, and a multinational commission oversees its conservation and limited catches. Environmental pressure group Greenpeace, however, urges a fishing moratorium to ensure the growth of the entire tuna population and their escape from extinction. According to the United Nations, more than 70% of the world's commercially important fish stocks are either overexploited, depleted, slowly recovering, or close to the maximum sustainable level of exploitation. Market factors, however, have kept the tug-of-war between the tuna industry and environmentalists going. Tuna in many ways is king in Japan, the world's largest overall fish consumer. In 1 year alone, over 460,000 tons of tuna are consumed raw by the Japanese public. A pocket-sized next-generation battery, which can operate a vehicle, has been unveiled in Tokyo. The next-generation batteries were displayed at a ceremony where it operated a luge-shaped vehicle. It's called OxyRide and was developed by Panasonic. By adopting oxynickel hydrogen oxide, manganese dioxide and graphite onto the positive pole, the voltage of the new generation battery is being geared up. This next generation battery can be used for anything that alkaline batteries are used for. The voltage of the battery is about 1.5 times higher than one alkaline battery. A vehicle can go as far as 1.2 kilometers at a maximum speed of 3.3 kilometers per hour with 2 of the OxyRide batteries. As an example, by using OxyRide batteries, a digital camera could be operated for twice as long as one with alkaline batteries.